Hello, my name is Lauren Odell, and I chose to do my research project on Down syndrome. I've always been very interested in the Down syndrome community, and doing this research project really opened my eyes towards the people involved, as well as learning more about their day-to-day lives and families involved. It's always interested me how Down syndrome can affect almost anybody, regardless of their background. Because of this, Down syndrome creates a very strong community of people. Families and individuals are faced with a set of challenges and obstacles that are unlike most other communities of people. Those with the condition must face a life much different than ordinary people, and their parents or caretakers must take time and caution while guiding them throughout life. Down syndrome is a chromosome defect that affects its carriers to have intellectual impairments and physical abnormalities. The most common form of Down syndrome is when someone's chromosome 21 is duplicated. This extra pair of chromosomes leads to mental disabilities and changes in physical development. Down syndrome is not very common in the United States. Approximately 1 in 700 babies are born with Down syndrome. In total, about 6,000 babies are born a year with Down syndrome. Down syndrome often leads its carriers to have higher risks for other medical conditions. This is often because genetic materials changed with Down syndrome, so other conditions become more common. Some of these common complications that arise are heart defects, immune disorders, obesity, and even leukemia in some young children. When interviewing a young Down syndrome girl's mother, she explained to me that at the age of 1, her daughter Gertie was diagnosed with leukemia. Gertie, now 5 years old, fought her battle with leukemia while dealing with her condition of Down syndrome already. Gertie was in the hospital for a year and went through 6 rounds of chemo and radiation. Gertie's parents were already trying to figure out how to deal with her Down syndrome condition and were suddenly thrown that news on her first birthday. Due to the increase in medical complications, caring for a Down syndrome individual can make it that much more complex. My first interview was with Gertie, and it was a great place to start. It was great to get to know her parents and then later meet and connect with Gertie herself. She just recently began her first year in school. She's in kindergarten at El Centro Elementary School here in Napa. Gertie is a very fun young girl, and I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to even babysit her following our interview together. A strong misconception I had was that Down syndrome children and adults were always happy and didn't express many other emotions. It turns out when working with Gertie, I got to experience her in every kind of mood. Gertie was often happy, but also had her moments that you would see the complete opposite side and have to sit down and talk it out with her. Gertie is very behind in her speech. She does not talk well and has been doing speech since the age of 2. She uses sign language quite often to communicate with everyone, but it makes it very difficult to try and communicate with her when her speech isn't great. One of the most interesting things about the Down syndrome community is that all of the people and families must face similar harsh realities. All of the families that I interviewed either had health complications at birth or early into their child's life. Another set of problems many must overcome are the learning and physical disabilities associated with Down syndrome. One question I was very curious to ask all of my interviewees was, did your child have to do any physical or speech therapy to help with their growth as an individual? Everyone said yes and had different specific things that their children have had to work on to grow and learn. Besides Gertie's problems with speech, a 10-year-old boy named Luke and a 3-year-old named Ryan have had minimal issues with speech and communicate very well. They've had to overcome other problem areas by working closely with other therapists. Amy Barberi, Luke's mom, summarized the struggle very well by saying that you work so much harder for each milestone that no accomplishment goes unnoticed or uncelebrated. Another real-world problem these parents and children will one day have to face is law enforcement. According to a 2012 study done by the U.S. Department of Justice's Bureau of Justice Statistics, cited in an article by The Atlantic, Americans with disabilities are victims of violent crimes at nearly 3 times the rate of their peers without disabilities. While most parents didn't think their child would one day have to worry about interactions with police, Luke's mom did have some valid concerns. She thought that it could be a problem area if someone didn't recognize his disability or if her son happened to joke too much with an officer. She worries a little less because her son speaks well, but this could be a challenge for nonverbal Down syndrome people. This experience taught me a lot about a community and culture of people I didn't know much about beforehand. It was very interesting to see the struggles of the Down syndrome community firsthand by interacting with the families and Down syndrome individuals. I'm very glad that I chose this culture as it has led me to befriend some very incredible people.